action, drama, intrigue. These are just a handful of conventions that are used to keep an audience captivated, that keep people interested in the story that's being told. Personally, I'm a fan of all three. Give me all the fight scenes, emotional confrontations, and mysteries you can muster, and I'll still be asking for more. But sometimes you need to take things slow. Sometimes a story needs a break, not just for the audience's sake, but for the characters. And that is where Downtime comes in. What is downtime? Well, sometimes in a story, either before or after a hectic ordeal, the characters in it are given a moment of reprieve, a low-stakes length of time for them to catch their breath. How much time? Well, it depends. Sometimes it's a short scene, sometimes it's an entire arc. Now I know what you're thinking. Isn't that just filler? Doesn't it only exist to pad out the length of a story? Well, the answer to those questions is yes, but also no. Like many things, it all comes down to execution. Downtime when used for the sake of padding is your garden variety, clip show running, ostrich fighting filler. But when it's used to actually explore the characters in ways the audience is yet to see, that's when it becomes an indispensable narrative device. The problem is, juggling characters and story is not an easy feat. Both are equally vital to creating a compelling narrative, but by shining a light on one, you risk keeping the other in the dark. A good example of this pitfall is Avengers Age of Ultron. Now I don't think there's a single MCU movie I genuinely dislike. Even Thor: The Dark World isn't enough to force my finger to my TV's off switch. But Age of Ultron is a movie that always leaves me feeling sad after watching it. Not because it was terrible, but because it had potential. The later MCU movies have shown just how much of a linchpin Age of Ultron is, story and character-wise. For the story, it introduces numerous key elements that were explored and dissected for years. The only problem is the story isn't exactly told very well. But when it comes to the movie's characters, it's the exact opposite. The Avengers throwing a party is exactly the kind of scene that a big team-up superhero film needs. Heck, it might just beat out the Hulk vs. Hulkbuster as my favourite part of the movie. Why? Well, if we look back at the first Avengers film, we've seen these characters fight each other and we've seen them fight together, but we've never seen them actually be together. And the party scene did exactly that, injecting some much needed emotional connection into these characters. Steve talking and playing pool with Sam, showing that they're more than just work colleagues, but actual friends who spend time together. Rhodey, Hill, Tony and Thor cracking wise, not as one-liners in the middle of a battle, but as friends poking fun at each other. And while I'm not a fan of the Black Widow Banner romance, I can't deny that their little flirting, not flirting scene is pretty darn cute. All of this culminates in everyone drunkenly trying to lift Mjolnir, which perfectly showcases each Avenger's personality. It captures Hawkeye's headstrong attitude, Iron Man's ego, the humbleness of Captain America, the reflection of the Hulk, which is Banner's goofy and shy temperament, and Black Widow's enigmatic nature. Even though Age of Ultron has its problems, for me, this one scene made the movie a lot better than it should have been, because in my mind, it cemented the Avengers as actual friends, something that would go on to be a pivotal pillar of future MCU movies. But that's just one example of downtime, and it's a fairly short one at that. Plus, while the scene is written well, the movie surrounding it isn't. So for the rest of the video, I'm going to list off, in no particular order, my favourite examples of downtime done right, where the characters and the story aren't just perfectly balanced, but perfectly executed. First up, we've got an entry from a show that's near and dear to my heart, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now I was obsessed with this show as a kid, hell, my whole family was. I remember back when it was first airing, we'd drop everything and gather in the living room whenever it was time for the next episode to drop on Nickelodeon. But as tempted as I am to spend the next 10 minutes talking about how much I love Avatar, this video is about downtime, and it is demonstrated beautifully in the tales of Ba Sing Se. At first glance, the episode just seems to be a collection of short stories starring the main cast. Sure, it has some great character moments, Katara and Toph discussing insecurities and strengthening their friendship, Aang and Momo coping with the loss of Appa, Zuko going on a date to capture some semblance of normalcy, and Sokka, well, Sokka just keeps being Sokka. A nice episode, but nothing too special, right? Right?
Leaves from the vine, falling so slow, like fragile tiny shells drifting in the foam. Little soldier boy, come marching home. Brave soldier boy comes marching home.
Yeah, this episode is pretty famous for being a tearjerker, and its reputation is well deserved. The tale of Iroh is so fantastically written, I'm still in awe of it to this day. It takes everything we already know about Iroh as a character and puts it on display for all to see. His kind nature, his wisdom and patience, and of course, his guilt. The driving force behind his overprotectiveness of Zuko, because he doesn't want his nephew to end up like his son. It's exactly what an episode centered around Downtime should be. Character driven with story elements, but not so much that it advances the plot. All it should advance is the actual characters, and the Tales of Ba Sing Se does exactly that. The next example is from something I've talked about before, Attack on Titan. Now my love for the show is well documented, so I'll cut right to the chase and address the episodes in question that give us a good look at Downtime done right. In the first few episodes of the final season, we're introduced to a slew of brand new characters. Gabi, Falco, Udo, Zofia, Colt, Porco, and Peak. For the first four, the introduction takes place in the midst of all-out war, and while we get glimpses of their personalities and characters, the majority of the episode is focused on the amazing Titan action sequences. But come episode 2, 3, and 4, we're given much more than just glimpses. We see them celebrating their victory, we see them having dinner with their families, we see them training together, eating together, laughing together, and in the space of a few episodes, they manage to cement these characters' personalities. On top of that, we have Reiner, who's put under a glorious spotlight and made even more nuanced than he was in the past. Like I said in my Attack on Titan video, Reiner is one of my favourite characters, and seeing his arc come to life in anime form was fantastic. Now when it comes to the newer characters, out of all of them, Gabi and Falco get the most attention. And by doing so, events that occur later in the season don't just come out of thin air. Through Downtime, we've been shown just exactly who these characters are and how they would react to certain occurrences, and no matter how you feel about what happens next, you can't deny that it made sense for it to happen. My final example comes from Justice League. No, not that awful movie, the phenomenal animated series. Now I watched this show an unhealthy amount of times as a kid, mostly because I had the DVD box sets of season 1 and 2. So naturally, every episode of it I rewatch now comes with a healthy helping of nostalgia on the side. But it's not rose-tinted glasses that make the show so great, it's the characters, which is why episode 23 of season 2 is one of my favourites. Comfort and Joy may seem like your average Christmas episode, but it is so much more than that. There are 3 different stories in it following 5 different Leaguers. We've got Green Lantern and Hulk Girl, Superman and Martian Manhunter, and The Flash. If you've been watching this far, you'll know that GL and Hulk Girl have a thing for each other, and that relationship is explored in their story. They have a snowball fight, cute, go out drinking at Hulk Girl's favourite bar, cuter, and end up cuddling in the arms of a giant alien who they previously fought in a massive bar brawl. The cutest. Superman and Martian Manhunter's story is by far the most wholesome. Supes invites Ja-on to spend Christmas with the Kents, and my god, Jonathan and Martha Kent are just the sweetest. It's been a while since we've seen them properly represented and well written, but seeing them and Clark interact as just a normal ass family living on a farm in Kansas warms the cockles of my heart. The rest of the story is about Ja-on trying to fit in and understand humanity, and while he doesn't exactly achieve that goal, the story ends on a hauntingly beautiful note. And last but not least, we have the Flash's story, which is about getting a last minute toy for the orphanage he regularly visits. Now this story paints Wally in a great light. As the resident jokester of the team, he doesn't really get many selfless character moments as a person rather than a superhero. He manages to get the toy, but it breaks in a fight with the Ultra Humanite, which crushes Flat's spirit to the point he tells Humanite to just shoot him, which he does, but not to kill him. In fact, he does just the opposite. Reminiscing of a time when he too looked forward to Christmas, Humanite repairs the toy, gives it to the kids, and surrenders. The story then ends with a heartwarming moment spurred on by a gift in the form of a tinsel tree. Now all 3 of these stories are like a grilled cheese for the soul, a nice comforting series of vignettes that bring joy to anyone who watches them. But while that's why I adore the episode, it's not the only thing that makes them such great examples of Downtime. It's the fact that each story builds on the characters and the world they inhabit without going overboard. Clark Kent's goofy and dorkish personality, which is often subdued when he's Superman, is shown in a way that doesn't flanderize him. Martian Manhunter's struggle to understand humanity, which has been present from episode 1, is further explored but not resolved. Flash's tendency to talk with and actually help out his villains starts to blossom, and Green Lantern and Hawkgirl's relationship is strengthened just in time for the 3-part season finale that puts it to the test. By now it's no secret that I'm a sucker for Downtime, but before I go I just want to say one last thing about it. I've talked about the importance of characterization and story, but in reality, once you get down to the heart and soul of it, the true reason I find Downtime so enthralling is that it reflects the audience within the characters. Not everything needs to drive the plot, not everything needs to be an end of the world scenario. Sometimes larger than life characters eat breakfast, take spa days and go to concerts for no other reason than because they want to. There's nothing more human than taking a break to do absolutely nothing, and that's what Downtime is in the face of the story it's contained within. Compared to the bombastic battles, engaging drama and captivating mysteries, it's not all that flashy, and yet, when it's done right, it can make for some of the most memorable parts of a story.